Bombshell Brunches, where your hosts Raquel Rudenberg and Christina Lau sip and spill with badass babes every Tuesday morning.
Hello, hello, darling bombshells. I am so excited to introduce you to one of the first human beings I knew outside of my family circle. We won't go into how we met. It was actually quite boring. But Gillian is one of my favorite people on the planet. She's a registered nutritional therapist, a functional medicine practitioner, and integrative cancer coach. Integrative cancer coach? Integrative. And is passionate about supporting people with cancer integrate nutrition and lifestyle medicine alongside standard cancer care. That's a lot of information. What I like to say personally is that Gilly is a superhero, one of my favorite humans who turned her life completely around after it turned around on her. And I have never been more inspired by somebody's health and wellness story. And I'm so, so happy to bring you in and have this conversation with you. Hi, Gilly.
Hi. Oh, that's such a nice intro. Thank you.
Just want to make you cry.
Change my bio on my website now and change it to that. Superhero.
I think Christina should just write everyone's bios and they would all be
I do Absolutely. That. I do that for a living as well. That's kind of what I do.
Pay her.
So, I mean, Raquel, you've had 2 minutes to know Gilly, and I have known Gilly for more years than we both care to say right now because we're timeless.
Absolutely.
But you went from being a brain cancer survivor to this like absolute thriver who is now, you were a director of in a modeling agency. Like I remember our dinners and you talking about how stressed you are, all of the assistants you had. All I wanted was assistants after the conversations with you. But I want to talk about how you grew up. I know the story. I know the answer. Where you grew up and how you think that set you up well. Yeah. Tell us about you, your background. You can add the bit that we met into that too.
Okay, sure. So born and raised in Hong Kong, and that is where I was so lucky to be in the same class as darling Christina here.
At the age of 4.
Yeah, I think 4. And then, yeah, you'll have to correct me if I get stuff wrong because it's a long time ago. But I think it was 4, and then we were in primary school until I left when I was 10. Do you live in the same year? Yeah, we both left when we were 10. To go to boarding school, to be well-behaved and brought up children.
Fail.
I was lucky enough, yeah. I was lucky. I went to a mixed prep school in the UK. So from 10 till 13, I was in a co-ed prep school, which I loved. It was just like having a sleepover with my friends every single day, which I don't know if you remember, I wasn't really allowed that in Hong Kong.
Yeah, you weren't. No.
So I was really deprived.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You came over to mine quite a lot.
Yeah, so I relied on friends a lot for me to go over and stuff. Oh, I remember those sleepovers. I've still got photos of
We need to bring those out to promote.
For sure.
little Chris and Gilly, and like, what was it? I think it was like 20 years later. I was like, dude, you haven't changed. You look.
I know, we're still exactly the same. Hopefully in another, I don't know, 25 years we'll look slightly different.
Yeah. Well, hopefully
Gray.
not. I don't. Yeah, maybe silver fox.
Gray with beards.
So when you grew up, you moved around a lot. Like you and I are both transnational kids, and I think that's pretty unique in and of itself. Obviously, being mixed race, being kind of Chinese, Eurasian, European and Asian, and your father was a pretty influential figure.
He was. So he was a solicitor in Hong Kong. He had really interesting, actually. He'd went to Hong Kong without having studied law whatsoever. Was actually a pretty bad student in the UK, and then got shipped out to Hong Kong in the early 70s, and just basically built his way up in the law firm, where he started just filing, he was an article clerk, so just filing different cases for like the different lawyers in the law firm, and just made his way up through the firm, and then managed to be, senior partner for, over a decade. He was one of the longest standing senior partners there. So really an amazing career that he just forged completely by himself.
And your mother is a force as well. Like, your mother is such a force. My goodness.
You don't want to get on the wrong side of my mom.
But she's just incredible. Like, and we'll get to that later. Like the fact that like how your mom was just so fiercely like dedicated, to you always, and she always has been ever since we were kids. Like, she really has. And we didn't have it. So, I mean, it was tricky growing up. I mean, Dad was working so much all the time. So I would say he wasn't that present in my childhood. And he was definitely, he was very English, let's say, so very proper, not one to express emotions. So actually that plays a part in, how my story came about, because not growing up in a family where there's an open environment to express emotions, or having issues at school, or feeling bad one day and not being able to voice, not having someone there saying, what's wrong, tell me about it, tell me what you're feeling. Having to just deal with that by yourselves. And definitely don't cry, because that's no good. So just having to adapt, and you adapt, so you never think it's an issue. It's like, so what? I grew up, and like tons of people's parents don't have that kind of communication, so it was like, okay, fine, not a big deal. But looking back after everything I've been through and what I'm studying now and seeing, and a lot of other people who get diagnosed with not just cancer but other chronic illnesses, how you've grown up as a child and the relationships you have with your parents are hugely important in the development of disease later on in life. So it's hugely impactful when so many people think that actually it's not a big deal, but actually it plays a huge part. And being able to then go back and deal with those relationships and open up and have those conversations maybe that you never had with your parents, that's really important. Getting a little bit sidetracked. But that's true. That's a very important. It's part of wellness. We'll get to the wellness side of it. It's such a holistic thing. Yeah.
So just to go back, so leaving to go to boarding school, I just felt that was the best thing ever. I had so much fun there. I had 3 years in this co-ed school, and then Mum was like, let's reel it in. Next 5 years, all girls school. So I had the choice of 2 girls schools to choose from. So I chose one that I had another good friend going to from our class in Hong Kong. So that she was basically the reason that I chose to go there.
Tanya, and again, right? Was it Tanya?
Flora.
Oh, Flora, right.
Yeah. So got to this all-girls boarding school, and really lucky again. I had amazing friends there from day one. And so, we hear horror stories about people going to boarding schools, but I have to say, like, some of the best years of my life, like, had great friends. I didn't dread going back to school, after the holidays, I wanted to go back. It was really like a fun place for me. So that was really lucky. However, then fast forwarding, post-diagnosis and going to psychotherapy, my shrink was big on, there's a big thing called boarding school syndrome, which I'd never really thought about, but apparently that's a thing. Just being even more separated from voicing emotions and dealing with all of that, because you're just in this strict, rigid educational, boarding school system. But anyway, I never really, I don't know, maybe that did affect me, maybe it didn't, I don't know. It probably just continued the path that I was already on with, parent communication is like, are you okay with money? How are your grades? Everything okay? Okay, good. That's all that matters, kind of thing.
Right.
Which is fine. Like, every parent is just doing the best they can, right? So never looking back now with, wish they could be different. I mean, I've done a lot of psychotherapy work just to understand all of this, and just to be able now to have such a healthy relationship with my mom. I mean, obviously I said I can't have it with my dad now, but just to be able to have that with my mom now, I'm so grateful. And that's a huge thing. Even though she was always there for me as a child, our communication, I mean, we had the typical mother-daughter, during the teenage years, terrible, everything I did just drove her, up the wall. And everything she said just drove me up the wall. So it was just the worst. But the fact that we've been able to evolve through that and then getting through the cancer and the death of my dad and just everything that we all had to go through.
Yeah, put that in order. And I think that's really important because, I love that you say going back and talking to your family and talking to your parents, opening up channels of communication is so important. But I want to talk about how that, how you ended up then in Paris and then getting to that point, and then lead me all the way up to the tumor.
Yeah. Okay. So we're now in all girls boarding school. So I'm there from 13 to 18. And this is, quite a strict boarding school, curfews and things. I was quite rebellious, I must say. So I would, yeah, I don't even know if I'm thinking about like,
guess
oh
with
shit.
those glasses. It's so cute. And
I know. It's such a lie. Gilly's she's not who you think she is. She's sneaky. Sneaky like her veins.
Yeah, very sneaky veins. But anyway, so I was quite naughty, and I was just kind of gagging for, like all of us teenage girls, male attention, but we're in an all-girls school, horribly self-conscious, but, just craving, having a boyfriend. And I don't know if you remember, but in boarding school, I really put on quite a bit of weight. So I was always quite chubby. And in my family, like, my brother was the skinny one and I was the fat one. I mean, the nickname has stuck so far that I still get called Fat Girl as my nickname in my family, even though now roles are reversed and it's totally the other way around now. So it's like,
George.
karma will get you.
Or at least your metabolism will.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So yeah, quite a rebellious teenager. And so when I finished A-levels, so 18 years old, getting all those exams out the way, I just wanted to move to Paris. Like, it was a childhood dream. I'd met a guy also in Paris who I was going over to see. Nobody really knew about it. I had to cause a lot of trouble with the school, to get the permission to go over to stay with someone else's parents so that I could see him and things, and all very naughty. But anyway, so I was having glimpses of Paris during my final 2 years of school, and just falling in love with it more and more with every trip. And so, my A-level, my best A-level was French. And so, I got a star in French. I applied to university to study French literature. So I basically made my whole life about so that I could live in Paris. That's all that mattered for me at that age. And then it was like, oh, can I spend my gap year in Paris, please? I'd gotten into UCL, which is a really good university in London, but you can defer a year. So I was like, Mom, Dad, would you mind if I do a gap year in Paris? I'll go to university. I'll go to the American University in Paris and, study there for the year. That didn't really happen. I think I failed every module that I did that semester. I think I scraped like an F or something. And then after that semester, I was like, well, I'm not really learning much French here. So let me transfer to the Sorbonne, which, great reputable university, French university. And they had like a French language course. So I was like, well, let me do the second semester in the language course. And that was only 6 hours a week of class. So this was just like, oh, perfect. 6 hours a week of class. I have the rest of the day to do whatever I want in Paris. And so I was just living the ultimate life as a 18, 19-year-old, living the dream, living on my own in Paris. I I started off in the 16th arrondissement, and then I moved in with a really good friend who was living in the 6th, so right in the center of Paris, where it's just, you know, the most beautiful, and just doing whatever we wanted. Like, we had no parental anyone stopping us from doing anything. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, looking back now, it's like, oh my God, so much bad stuff could have happened to us. Like,
when we were catching up in London, when we both lived in London for a while, like Gilly would say things and I'd be like, holy shit, who are you? Like, who even are you? Living in cities, being city girls, like, you just blow the roof off it, don't you, sometimes?
yeah, just trust, so much trust. Just like, yeah, I haven't met this person at all. He seems a bit off, but, you know, he's got a car. Let's hitch a ride back into the city with him. That's fine. You know, looking back, it's like, oh my God, three 18-year-olds, you know, wearing, you know, God knows, hardly any clothing.
Oh my God.
Just been at like an overnight rave, like all through the night, and then hitching a ride back to Paris. Like,
I'm so sorry, Mrs. Bertram, I did not know Gillian. But me, I had nothing to do with, we weren't even talking at that time. I just
very
want this
naughty,
to be really
very
clear
naughty.
and on the record, okay?
Yeah, I think she thought I was going through a spiritual crisis at the time. I think that's how she phrased it. And, you know, she probably wasn't far off, to be fair. It's quite an accurate description. But yeah, those were really fun times. And to be honest, that year and a half was, you know, I always said that's the best year of my life, and I just wanted to continue living that way forever. But then, you know, real life comes in. I had to go back to London, go back to uni. Got horribly depressed back in London because my dream was Paris. I was fixated on it. London at the time was pretty horrible. So not at all like how it is now. It's had a complete makeover. And so I did 1 year in London, and then I just did everything I could to get back to Paris as soon as possible, but in a legit way, so my parents wouldn't kind of kill me. And so I just transferred to another course, which was 3 years instead of 4 years, which meant I could have part of my second year in Paris doing like the exchange kind of not work experience, but studying abroad program. So did my 6 months. So changed university so I could go to Paris sooner, got to Paris, and then I was like, well, I'm not going back to London anymore. This is it. I'm staying here. So then I had to change university again to transfer to the one that I was studying at in Paris. So at the end of it, Mum was like, can you just stop changing course and just finish university and get your degree? And anyway, because everything in London, when you study French, is all taught in English, so you don't actually learn anything. And then finally I'm living in Paris. I'm like, oh shit, I can't speak French. And so I had to repeat a year. And so it took me a bit longer to finish uni compared to someone else. But that was great for me because it just meant more time as a student. And then it was after I finished that I got this job in the fashion industry in a model scouting agency. So similar to a model agency, but we're the ones that scout the girls before they even think about modeling, like when they're like 11 years old, and then we follow them for like a few years until they're like 14. Not creepy at all. Until they're 14, and then we're like, oh, get you to do a few pictures, and then we can send them to Japan, and then you can do some, the Japanese love young white, skinny Russian girls to do all their lookbooks and all their fashion stuff. So that then became my career. I started with the company right when it was just forming, and that meant that I was kind of top of the company from the beginning, like with the founder, and which meant that as time went on, we kept on recruiting like people that we needed help with, assistants. This is where the assistants came in. Of course, because I was there first, I was kind of helping everyone figure out how to do the job and what we needed to do, and just figuring out how to make the company work better. And really, I loved it at the beginning. Like, I was like, oh my God, I have made it. I am living in Paris. I'm working in the fashion industry. Love my life right now.
You're skinny. You got super skinny.
I got super skinny.
Too skinny.
Wore whatever I liked. Like, it was just, I was so happy.
So now fast forward, because that was like a number of years. So now let's take it to, this has painted a beautiful picture of like, here's a normal, slightly naughty, sneaky veined child who's now grown up into this, and boom, all of a sudden.
So all of a sudden, well, maybe not all of a sudden. So I have to backtrack. So a few years before my all of a sudden diagnosis, I had been in a long-term, long-distance relationship, which I was very unhappy in. I had started, doing every diet under the sun that came out. So eating very sporadically, not eating well at all, doing recreational drugs, which also help you not eat properly. Binge drinking, so not even a regular, like I like my red wine at night kind of thing, but just like not drinking at all, but then leaving it all till the nights that we go out, and it's just like zero control. And I don't know if you get the red face thing when you drink.
We're Asian. We get that.
Right. So that is the body already saying like, we should not be drinking. And even for other people who aren't Asian who get that flush, I mean, that is the body like giving you a sign. Because obviously every alcohol, just any alcoholic drink, breaks down to alcohol, which is the same as ethanol pretty much, and that is a neuropoison, it's a neurotoxin, and our liver, the poor liver, has to deal with that. And so it takes someone with a pretty good liver to deal with all of that. And us going red is just our body saying we're struggling here, so we're going to try and deal with it in other ways. And I would just go straight through that redness. I'm like, I'm going to keep drinking, because I knew if I kept going, I would eventually go dead white like a ghost. And so I would, so you obviously don't push that far to go to that.
No, I fall asleep 2 glasses of wine.
Right.
I'm like, right. Goodbye.
Well, that's saving your ass in quite a lot of ways. So that's actually a really good thing. So I would push through this just so that I could not have this, what I thought was really embarrassing red face when I drank. So just going against all my body's signs, basically. And then, so all of that just to say, what could appear as something happening out of nowhere, actually there were quite a few things going on that, weren't right. And also, to top it all off, at that point, 3 years before my diagnosis, I had wanted to completely quit that job. I wasn't fulfilling anymore. I went to work dreading it. I just couldn't bring myself to write those emails, and just I couldn't care. And it got to the worst about 3 months before my diagnosis. And I was usually the negotiator in the company. So if there was an issue, I would be the one to write the lengthy email to both parties and just really find a middle space. And everyone would always be like, oh my God, that was such a good email, and amazing that you could do that. And those last 3 months, I just remember being I just can't bring myself to have that energy to pour out and make this all okay between these people. And that was a little bit of a telling sign, change in behavior and mood, I guess. That can be a sign of a brain tumor. Because I've been always thinking back now, God, did I not have any other symptoms apart from 2 seizures? But anyway, so first started being really unhappy at work, in an unhappy relationship. And then my father died really suddenly. So heart attack from one day to the next, really didn't see that one coming. And obviously all those little things that had been, building up, and then to have that massive loss and that trauma, I mean, that is really having the carpet taken up from under your feet. That was just, I think, the cherry on top of the cake. And whatever had been growing might have been a benign tumor up until that point. I think that just turned everything. And we hear that a lot in cancer, that a lot of cancer patients, about 2 years before their diagnosis, they will have suffered some major or very stressful event. And this is very common, particularly in breast cancer, women with breast cancer, that there will have been a very stressful or traumatic event in the years leading up to the diagnosis that has just, turned the tables on what might have been lying there underneath, but hadn't turned malignant.
Interesting.
So my father died, and then soon after his death, I had my first seizure, completely out of the blue. Had no idea what it was. I was in a cafe and my eyes just started moving uncontrollably to the left. Like I couldn't control my eyes. Like that never happened. And then it became so strong with the eye movements that in the end, then my head started going. And I was just like, oh my God, but I was completely awake the whole time. So I was just like having coffee and then I'm just like, oh my God, guys, I can't stop moving my head. And like normally you would just like concentrate and just, you know, stop your head moving. But imagine not being able to do that. It was just like being taken over by some horrible force, like in a nightmare. And so, but then, you know, the boyfriend I was with at the time, he just like was really good. He just held me and calmed me down. And then it eventually stopped after like 30 seconds or something. So by the time the ambulance came, I was just like, I was normal again, just in shock, like what the hell just happened? And they said, you know, they tested all my reflexes, everything's normal, everything's fine. But then I was like, well, I still want to go to the hospital because I want to find out what the hell that was. So they took me. But then the woman who was in A&E was moving to Australia like a week later. So her head was like not in the right place. So after she, you know, analyzed my reflexes again, no one ordered a brain scan. And actually afterwards, I found out that actually if an adult has never had experience, like previous history of a seizure and manifests with a seizure, a brain scan should be ordered. But like none of that happened. So they just let me out of the hospital and just said, oh, it's probably, you know, stress induced because you just lost your father. And that's a hugely stressful event. So they let me go, flew back to Hong Kong with his ashes, have the big memorial. And this is where like I find it really interesting, and I'm a big believer in everything happens like just the way it should. Even though horrible, I lost my father, but had he not passed away, when I was in Hong Kong, I would have not been sleeping in my mom's and dad's bed so that I would be close with my mom. And if I hadn't been sleeping in that bed, she wouldn't have felt the bed shaking when I was having my second seizure in my sleep. That was the only way that, you know, if I'd been in my bedroom, in my bed, I would have just had that second seizure in my sleep, probably woken up the next day like normal and not known about it. But it was because I was in her bed. She felt the bed moving. She woke up, called an ambulance. They took me to hospital. And that's when, you know, they scanned and they found the tumor.
And Hong Kong has some of the best medical care. It really can have some of the best medical care. And so, yeah, that was, and then you got stuck in Hong Kong. Obviously, you couldn't fly, right?
Yeah.
So that was what, November? That was September, October?
This was in September, mid-September at this point. And then so Queen Mary, which is where I was taken to by the ambulance, so it's a public hospital, and they said, well, this tumor is so big in the right frontal lobe here, and that controls like emotions and mood and higher thinking. They said, well, it's so big and you've got no other symptoms, so actually we think it's benign, so not an aggressive cancer. And so they actually said, you know, go back to Paris and go back to work and come back at Christmas and we can do a biopsy, which is putting a needle in, taking a bit of tumor tissue out and testing it to see if it is cancerous. And so they were actually okay to let me go at that point. And it was only because a mutual friend, Emanuela, you remember? So she had a friend's dad who had, again, luckily, but you know, obviously not lucky for the family, but had been through brain cancer and had found an amazing surgeon in Hong Kong. And so she was like, contact the surgeon. Okay, it's private, but you know, at least get a second opinion. So that made total sense. So went to see him and he was like, it's such a big mass in your brain that I see it as a bit of a ticking time bomb. So my advice would be to have it removed as soon as possible, just to avoid, you know, any future complications or risk anything else happening, especially going on planes, you know, the pressure and all of that. And so I was like, hell yeah, like get me in there. And he is known as like one of the best surgeons, even worldwide, like not even just in Hong Kong. And he was also the kindest man also. So I just felt like, wow, this is really the person, if there is one going, who's going to be going into my head. And then luckily he actually was going to be traveling for the next 4 weeks, like going to America, lecturing or something. So I said, okay, well, let's schedule the surgery 6 weeks from now so that you can do all your traveling, come back and get over your jet lag before you like go into my brain. So then we scheduled for, first days of November. So that's when I had my surgery.
And
Yeah.
sorry, so what was your first thought? Like you find out you have this tumor. What are you thinking?
Well, so I was waking up in the hospital after having this, seizure in the middle of the night, and then waking up to, just thinking back to like how it was. I mean, it's just, family around, like my mom there, and people showing me like the scan picture, and it's like, Gilly, you have a tumor in your head. It's just like, what? It was just confusion, really, I think, the first few days. Because at this point, no one's mentioning cancer at all. No one like says the word. Like all it is lesion, mass. Sometimes I wouldn't say a tumor, but it was like shadow on the brain. Like no one's really saying cancer. So at the beginning, it really wasn't like I've got cancer. It was like, oh, there's a shadow on your scan, and we don't know what it is, and like beat around the bush kind of thing. And funnily enough, it wasn't until I went to see my nutritionist, and this must have been about 2 weeks later, and he was the first appointment. So yeah, he said right out, like, we got to attack this cancer. I was just like, whoa, like, okay, like hadn't really been thinking of it like that at all. So that was really interesting. And actually, I'm glad he did, because it really made me focus, like, okay, this is serious shit. This isn't just something that I can just think about as like nothing.
And just so that everyone knows, like this was almost a quarter of the size of your brain. Like I remember when Declan sent me that scan.
Yeah.
It was huge.
Yeah, it was really big.
Yeah. And it was benign or thought to be benign to begin with, but like, yeah.
Yeah, so it was only during the surgery that, they obviously removed some of it, and they could test it during the operation so that they could then know what it was before, sewing me back up. And so it was during the operation they actually found out that it was a grade 3. So it's grade 3 out of 4 types of brain tumor. And of a very aggressive form. So one that usually, if it does come back, it comes back as the grade 4. And for that, the life expectancy is like 18 months. And a lot of people don't even make that 18 months if it comes back as the stage 4, as a grade 4. Glioblastoma is the grade 4 type. So yeah, obviously it got really serious after the surgery, because then the surgeons were like to my mom and my brother, she's going to need chemotherapy and radiotherapy, just to prevent, even though we've got most of it, all visible signs of the tumor. What they did say is, these glial cells, so that's what the cells that the tumor has grown out of, as much as you can remove, they can remove as much as they can. And with brain tumors for this type, it's more like sucking it out, because it's like all jelly, basically, those cells. And I remember waking up in the ICU, and I think the nurse showed me like 2 beakers, and one was filled with like gray cells, and the other one was like with pink cells. She was like, well, these are your healthy cells, brain cells, and then these are your... I might have dreamt all of this. I'm not even sure at this point. Sometimes I'm just like, did that really happen? But anyway, I remember like a huge difference between like healthy ones and, cancer cells. But yeah, whether that's even true, I don't know. But yeah, because the tumor was so big, but there was actually a division. It was divided in 2 parts, and there was like a septum, a bit like our septum in our nose. But instead of just sucking out either side of the septum, they just took out the whole, scooped it all out. And so I did lose quite a bit of healthy brain along with it. What effect that's had on me. I mean, it was really noticeable after the operation, just like spatial awareness, like not realizing if I just sat down at a table, I would just get up and leave and not realize I just left everything, like my wallet, my phone, everything, keys on this restaurant table. And it got so bad to the point, and all my supplements and stuff, just forget everything and not have any idea that I'd left anything. Wow. And so it got to the point where I got those elasticated stringy thing, so I would just attach everything to me. So if I got up from the table, everything would just come with me, like quite a dramatic scene. But
a laptop, like
phone, wallet, literally.
Just imagine everything just flying with you, like, oh my god!
It's just like pulling everything off the table.
So drama.
But I had to do that kind of thing so that I would slowly be able to learn and like relearn to, think about before I stand up, like, have I got everything? That all took quite a long time, a few months at least after the operation, or like coming home, taking off my shoes, being so certain, okay, my shoes are here by the front door. So if I go out again, I just know that they're there. An hour later, come back, where the fuck are the shoes? Like, they're just not there. And that would keep happening with everything. I'd be so sure I'd put something down somewhere, like so sure. And then it would just never be there. So it was just like frustrating and really annoying.
So I just, in the interest of time, I want to get to there's so much, we could just talk forever, but
I know, sorry, I do waffle.
No, but I want to talk about how then you introduce the nutrition. I want to talk about slowing down, I want to, hear, because so many people know someone who's gone through cancer of some kind. There's so much that we've got to learn from what you went through. I mean, I remember you being pretty awake straight after the surgery. And your biggest concern was that you would lose lose your personality, which clearly hasn't happened. It's still as dry, sarcastic, and brutally honest as your 4-year-old self. But tell me about that. Tell me how that shifted, because I want for our audience to understand how important the nutrition is.
Yeah, so I mean, I was so lucky in the way that I had those 6 weeks leading up to my surgery that I had to see a nutritionist. And a lot of cancer patients won't have that, because as soon as you're diagnosed, you are like wheeled into either surgery or chemotherapy, something, either to remove the tumor or to reduce it so then you can do treatment, or reduce it enough with treatment so it can be removed, that kind of thing. And so no one has any time to even like register what's happened, like have they, registered like they've been diagnosed. They have no time. You're diagnosed with cancer. That means that your immune system in the last 5, 10, 20 years has slowly been suffering so that this cancer has been able to grow, because all of us have cancer cells. It's just a matter of we have immune system as well that can keep the cancer at bay. So it's just when our immune systems get shot through stress, through poor diet, through smoking, through all the things that I explained that I was doing earlier. Those are all factors in suppressing a person's immune system. And when that's suppressed, that just gives cancer cells the chance to like have a party and just grow and grow without that person sometimes even knowing and realizing. And then that's why so many people get diagnosed and it's already stage 4 and it's everywhere, because cancer is a sneaky fucker.
Yeah. So what do we do like as normal humans? Like
as normal humans.
Yeah.
As opposed to the abnormal humans.
I mean, I would say a lot of it comes down to common sense, and a lot of, I say that recognizing that, me growing up, I could have said, I knew that smoking was bad for me. I knew that, drinking that excessively in one go is not good for you. We all know those kind of things, right? So it's keeping in check that you're not going and doing those things. And then on a much more general level, just making sure that you're maintaining adequate exercise, in the week, getting at least 3 to 4 days of exercise, mixing it up between, relaxing yoga Pilates style exercise, but then also making sure that you're getting your heart racing and pumping, even if it's for a short amount of time each day. I'm a big fan of just running up and down stairs, because a lot of us live in apartment blocks. So there's always like a stairway in the apartment block. So absolutely free. You don't need to join a gym. And with a lot of my clients, I'll just say, if you just have 15 minutes in your morning that you can fit in before you have your breakfast, because that's an important one. You want to be exercising on an empty stomach to really maximize doing exercise and, getting your metabolism going. Just 15 minutes, set a timer, put on a podcast, put on some music you want to listen to, and run to the top of the building as fast as you can. And for everyone, that's going to be different. So you just go as fast as you personally can go, all the way to the top. And then you're going to walk leisurely back down all the way to the bottom. And then you're going to run up all the way to the top again as fast as you can and walk leisurely back down to the bottom. And each time you're doing that, really, it's such a stress on your body running as fast as you can to the top, and then walking slowly back down is just telling your body, I'm okay, I can handle that. Actually, that was really hard going up. Like your heart will be beating like crazy. You'll be red in the face. You'll feel like you're dying by the time you get to the top. But then walking down, your body is realizing, wow, I could handle that stress. I'm okay. So each time you're doing that, your body is adapting to that stress because you're stressing it, but then you're relaxing. And that's why I think with strength training and all these bodybuilders, it's really important that they do like a recovery day after they've worked a certain part of the body, right? So it's the same thing, letting those muscles adapt to that stress that you've given them on the workout day. So this is a kind of a similar thing. And it just takes 15 minutes in the morning. So you just keep doing that up and down until that timer goes off. And, most people will be, drenched, really tired, and then you go shower and then you're ready for your day. If you want to push it a step further, have a really cold shower, and then you're activating all these anti-aging, boosting your mitochondria. You can get really
Wim Hof about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Love Wim Hof.
Well, but tell me about sugar then. Tell me about and also fasting. Like, have you fasted?
So all the research on fasting wasn't out yet really when I was going through treatment, but now that I have clients who are going through chemotherapy and radiotherapy, the research is there showing that fasting can optimize the efficacy of chemotherapy treatments. Not just for brain tumors, but also for all types of cancer. And so
do you
fasting,
mean like intermittent
no,
fasting?
this is like just water fasting.
Okay.
Like continuously. So you would start 48 hours before your chemotherapy, and then you would continue the fast until a day or two after your chemotherapy. And that it weakens the cancer cells, because obviously you're starving not just yourself, but the cancer cells who thrive on sugar and glucose. So you're starving them. So they become very weak. And then you're having your treatment after that. And so it's like a double whammy. You're weakening the cancer cells, and then you're hitting them with this hard chemotherapy treatment. And so it actually makes it work better, because the cancer cells are just going to gobble up all that chemo because they're so hungry. And so it's a way of just starving them and then feeding them the treatment. Yeah.
Literally like fighting fire with chemo fire.
Yeah, exactly. And then in some of the more integrative clinics, like what you find in Mexico, they will use that same approach, but they go one step further. So they'll, in a medically monitored environment, lower the person's insulin levels. So basically the same thing from fasting, just starving the cancer cells. But then because cancer cells use insulin as like the carrier to get the glucose and sugar into the cells, they then administer the chemotherapy, but a much lower dose with the insulin, and inject and give that with the chemotherapy. So they can use much lower doses, but because it's so targeted, because they've lowered the insulin in the patient, sometimes you can have such low amounts of low dose chemotherapy that you don't even have the side effects that normal people would have.
Why
so you don't
isn't that elsewhere?
Hair. Good question. Very good question. That's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah.
So I want to go back, because you were talking about trauma and how a lot of people have had, if you look back a couple years after their diagnosis, that they had some form of trauma. And we actually have an episode coming out tomorrow, like the real life tomorrow, not for the listeners who are listening today tomorrow, who is dealing with trauma in the body, and through movement, and she's got so many different things that she's working with. So
Yeah, amazing.
really amazing. And I think that's so interesting, looking at how trauma sits in the body. So it's not just physically like your muscles and aches and pains, but it's
Yeah, not at
also
all.
internally and all of that. So can you talk a little bit about that? And I don't know if you know this, but is there a difference in how people deal with trauma? Like maybe if they had trauma but were more emotionally equipped to deal with it in a better way, would that be creating less of an issue on their bodies?
Yeah, so just to answer the second question first, so everyone is so different in how they're going to deal with stress, anxiety, trauma. And for me, it's really about helping that person find what works for them. How can we help that person release the anxiety, the stress, the trauma? And there's so many modalities. I mean, trauma release therapy is just one, where you actively shake the person fake it till you make it kind of thing, just like, shake it out of the person almost. But then, there's talking therapy. A lot of people will do better with psychotherapy, talking therapy. Massage therapy, someone will do so well with massage therapy with someone, my mom hates getting massage. I mean, who could imagine? Like, how can you hate massage? But like for some people, it makes them more stressed out than other people who find it super relaxing. So we're all so different. So it's really about finding what works for you. But, with trauma staying in the body, absolutely. I mean, we all know about muscle memory. So why is it any difference with trauma? That gets trapped in our cells. Not even just in our muscles, but in our cells. And there's actually a practitioner who's created this approach called the journey. And her name's Brandon Bays. You heard of her?
Yeah. Well, I've done a journey with.
Oh, you have?
Sonal. Yep, I have.
Oh, wow. It's pretty deep work.
Yeah.
But that's all about releasing those trapped trauma memories, like locked in your cells. And that lady who invented the journey, she had a football-sized tumor in her abdomen. And just through doing this, processing all these suppressed emotions and trauma from her early life, she got rid of the tumor purely just from doing that work. I mean, obviously, she must have cleaned up her diet and, drunk lots of water and, all the, really basic things. But yeah, she was able to do that just by clearing all those suppressed emotions and traumatic periods of her life by, I don't know if you remember, Christina, but it's a lot about, you're meditating and you're visualizing the event, and then you change the events as they're happening back in that point in your life. And then you come up from that having changed it, and you live your life now as if that never happened.
Yeah.
So you're reprogramming yourselves.
There's so much that Ocean spoke about, and actually Sonal was talking about as well. Like, you get very vocal. It's important for you to be in a private place where you can yell and scream at people that you need to. Actually, I could probably get in touch with Sonal and get her on to talk about.
Yeah, that would be really good. And then there's so many others. Some people do a emotional freedom technique, otherwise known as tapping.
Yep, Ocean does
tapping
that.
through all your pressure points. So that's really effective for some people. I mean, again, it's just you need to find what works for you. And that's, as an integrative cancer coach, that's what I help people do. It's like, what is going to work for you? Because it's only in finding those things that you can tailor make your own, anti-cancer program to you. Because what works for someone isn't going to work for everybody. And that's why it's so important to really tune into yourself. What is important to you? What makes sense to you? And everything that you do, the way you eat, like removing certain foods, eating a certain way, does that make sense to you? And that's why you do it? If so, that's amazing. You want to be doing that. I mean, it's always good to check that, genetically that works for your body as well, and your genes and all of that. You can get really technical about it all. But I would say on a global level, people need to just tap into their intuition, because it's your body, you know best, above all.
Meditation.
That's a biggie. And for a lot of people, really difficult. I have to say that that's one thing that I've only introduced literally in the last 6 months. And it was something I've been telling myself because I know the benefits are so huge. And it's just not something that I was able to get into my physical daily morning. And I've had to merge it now with another thing that I do every morning just so that I can get it in there because it's just how many hours in the day? There's just not enough. So it's just about like, picking what's really important. And meditation was really important to me. I just didn't know how to fit it in. So now I only do 15 minutes a day, but I'm doing it every day.
Yeah.
And that makes the everything, that's the huge difference. It doesn't, if you do like 1 hour, every couple of months, like, yeah, that's great. But it doesn't matter how little you're doing, but if it's on a daily basis, I think that's most important. It's what you do every day that counts, not what you do once in a while.
It's what you do every day that counts. Yeah, I love that. Gilly, how did you survive, thrive, and be such an epic human being through this crazy cancer? Like I remember the life expectancy conversation. I remember the personality conversation. I remember the recovery. What is it that, for other people who are suffering, who know people who are suffering, what did you do? What did you do that made you like, you look like you're doing everything that you want to be doing in your life. You have wonderful people around you and me.
One of the most
to annoy you. But tell me so that we can give other people some great hope, right?
I mean, read as much as you can around every possible topic that you can find to do with cancer. I literally just read, and I still do. My fiance will say, oh my God, if you read one more cancer book, like before you go to sleep, how do you sleep after that? But for me, that's what keeps me going. I'm just so interested in it. And I think if people can get, shift their perspective on their cancer from a place of fear and move into a place of curiosity, like, why did I get this? Why did this happen to me? And start digging into your past and, into your, all the events in your life that have led up to this moment, and just become really curious and non-judgmental as well. And just being okay with, yes, I did all this, but that led me to now. And it's a place of growth, actually. Cancer is a wake-up call. You just need to try and figure out what it's trying to tell you. And I think if you can, such a difficult one to say, but like, enjoy the journey. It's this journey of self-discovery. I know so much more about myself than I ever did now.
And you had amazing people around you as well. Like when you were going through it, you had a really great foundation, and we're really big on that with Bombshell Brunches, is like really creating the people around you that are gonna be there and support you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's crucial. Just having people that aren't going to judge the decisions you make, because some of them aren't going to agree with some of the decisions you make. So it's important to have people who are just going to support you no matter what choice you make. I was really lucky that I had that a lot of the time. Stay away from people maybe that don't support you in your decisions, because that can just create a negative energy, and then you don't want that to interfere with what your intuition is telling you, what is best for you. So that's really important. But yeah, in terms of what can people do for themselves, I mean, there's so many resources out there, but essentially eat as clean as you can, eat as much organic food as you can afford. In the UK, we've got lists of, the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen. I think every country has their similar kind of thing. So find out which are the most, sprayed vegetables and fruit, and, buy those ones organic to be sure. Look at your home environment. Are you got chemicals, like cleaning products? Look at what you're using. Look at what you're using on your skin. What are you bathing in? What are you moisturizing your whole body with? Like, look at ingredient labels. Like, check all ingredients labels, and just make sure that it's as close to natural as possible. Because you just want to give your body less of a hard job. Like, your body can heal itself, but if you get in the way and you start loading on chemicals and you're breathing in chemicals, that just gives the body such a tough job when it's got so much to deal with anyway, like the environment, the pollution, COVID, like seriously got so much to deal with. And then you want to like be piling on like chemicals and stuff in your environment that you have control over. I think a lot of people with cancer, you know, they feel helpless, like this has just happened to me, there's nothing I'm in control over. But actually, when you look at things, there's a lot that you can be in control over. You know, how the people that you surround you with, what you put into your body, what you put on your body, emotionally, what are your thoughts, what are you thinking? Are they clean thoughts, you know, or are you constantly going around in circles? And if there's something that's going on that's not right, seek help. Don't just think you can deal with it on your own. Like, be open to finding help. Yes, it might cost money, but it's an investment in your health. I'm just about to take on 2 amazing people who are just interested in just preventing cancer.
Yeah.
And, you know, when I was talking about, you know, the cost of it all, it does get expensive. And she was like, well, I've just spent £900, you know, on my car to get that fixed. Why wouldn't I then invest, you know, same kind of money on my health and my body? And I'm just like, oh my God, that's exactly what I wish I would hear from everybody. You know, why would we spend more on our car than we would on our bodies? We only get one body.
It's so true. I spent $1,000 on my car. I mean, I'm an exception. I spent more than $1,000 on my everything else. But you know, when I think about it, you're right. I don't even compare it. I'm like, oh, well, that $1,000 I have to spend. But with my mind and my body, I'm like, oh, it's $250, or it's, you know,
right.
It's this much as, and I'm like, what? I need to reframe. That's a great reframe.
Yeah, and believe me, it's much more expensive if you wait till it's too late. Yeah. Much more expensive. So prevention is key. It's just, yeah, it's frame of mind. You've got to get your head around it. Like, preventing, don't wait till it's too late.
I think we're all so emotionally stunted too.
Yeah,
like
I mean,
it's not as, it's, I don't know. I think it's a lot of people grow up not really being in touch with their emotions. So when you were talking about that, I was really thinking back, and also to how it can affect the body and everything. And yeah, paying for that help. But maybe people have to first realize that it is an issue, because that might have been what made them survive through most of their lives. So they're like, well, this got me this far.
Yeah, and then seeing it as a good thing, but then, and probably it's been a good thing up until a certain point, but it's when new things in life happen, you know, or, you know, that you can't control, you know, COVID for one example, like who could ever tell that this would happen? But I mean, you were managing things pretty well up until this point, and then boom, something like this happens. I mean, over here, no life for a whole year, like that really gets to you. So even if you were great, you know, surviving before, this is just going to push you over the edge kind of thing. Or, you know, even without COVID, it's just like, you know, moving house is extremely stressful. Breaking up in a relationship, you know, so many things that are normal, losing a job, you know, getting a new job. These are all things that we just take, you know, because that's life, right? But we don't understand the toll it takes on our bodies.
Right, well, I'm going to go have a bath. I'm going to just stop this now. I'm going to go have a bath, stare out the window. I did do my bean and butter scrub. We had another guest on that, guests that were amazing about body butter.
Yeah. Oh, good. All natural, I imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then, Chris, you're so good. Like, I see you posting, like, going on these hikes in the mountains, and I'm always messaging, like, I'm so jealous. Like, fresh air, mountain air.
It's so great. Yeah, move to BC, everybody. Well, don't. I mean, seriously, don't clog up my trails. But
if you can get outside, just into nature on a daily basis, then you're halfway there. I'm telling you.
Yeah. I love that.
Such a huge impact.
Pushing the heart rate as well. Heart rate resilience. I think that's a really big thing. We have to kind of say goodbye for this time, but I do want to do another. I'd love to have you come back and talk about like, and let's get really deep into the Bertram Clinic of Nutrition.
Yeah,
your
I
sneaky
probably wasted a lot of time today on my upbringing and growing up.
Nothing is a
but,
waste.
Nothing
What
is
are
a
you
waste.
talking about?
We invested time. We invested time.
True.
We're gonna have Gilly part 2, but because you got your you're a phlebotomist now, which is my favorite word to say, apart from being a body butter and phlebotomy. So you're a vampire. I remember when you were studying for it, and I was like, oh, you're a blood stealer. So we need to have you come back, talk about that, talk about maybe some sample plans or what something might look like for a person. I know Raquel is going to come up with an amazing set of questions, which she always does. But where can we find you? Where can people find you in the meantime?
So the best place would be probably my website, which is www.bertramclinic.com. So BERTRAM clinic, CLINIC.com. I do have an Instagram, which is at Bertram Clinic of Nutrition. I also have my personal account, which I'm happy for people to join if they want to. That's at Gilly Bertram, GILLY. Anyway, all these links will be on the show notes.
They will.
So I'm going to spell them all out. I'm like, shit, I can't spell my name.
It's okay, you're excused. You have 3/4 of a brain.
But I would say my website would be the best place to kind of learn about what I'm doing and how I work and a little bit about my story. And then there's a few links to talks and interviews I've done in the About Me section. So there's all of that as well. But,
amazing.
Yeah, always open to helping anyone at any stage in their journey, starting from prevention. That would be amazing. But, if it's got to the point where you've been diagnosed, that too, happy to help. There's so much that can be done, so never lose hope.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for coming on.
No, thank you for inviting me.
Yay. Okay, bye.
Wait for the next one. Bye.
Yeah, bye. Thanks for listening, bombshells. In order to continue to elevate, subscribe and don't forget to click that little bell so you can get notified every time we have a new badass brunch. Until next time, stay focused, fierce, and fabulous.